And it goes without saying that the entire county is dealing with heavy rain and wind speeds of anywhere between 40, 45, 50, at times as strong as we've had a wind reading of 100 miles per hour at Miami International Airport today. At this hour, there's a strong line of heavy rain moving in across Key Biscayne. That is aiming for Coconut Grove, soon to impact Little Havana, Miami, the Overtown area. There's another huge band of heavy rain that'll move in through Pembroke Pines in about another 20 minutes. But basically, everyone in Miami-Dade County under a huge shield of rain with at least tropical storm force winds. Broward County, more of the same for you, from the beaches as far back as the Turnpike, the Sawgrass, US 27, Weston, Coral Springs, in through Palm Beach County, in through Collier County. The rain is relentless, and it's going to stick around for quite some time. The close-up cones suggest that the system will continue to move towards the north, possibly impacting the area here across southwest Florida, very close to Naples, then making its way just along the coast. It's going to hug the coast, and that could be the worst-case scenario, because not only is it going to impact everybody, but there's going to be a huge coastal surge all the way in through Tampa Bay. I'm sure that is just going to be a sea of water moving in. A lot of flooding in that vicinity is expected if this system does not change course. And then by Monday at around 8 a.m., right across Florida's Big Bend, it starts to weaken as a Category 1. Hopefully, a lot of the colleges and universities right across this area, all the way in through Florida State, may not see anything stronger than that. Eventually, it's going to make its way in through Georgia, Alabama, Kentucky, and Tennessee, raining itself out. Here are just a few of the wind gauges that are still operational. Pompano Beach, 76-mile-per-hour winds. Hialeah, 82-mile-per-hour gusts. And throughout the Keys, we've lost all our gauges there. We are now relying on buoy data. 24-mile-per-hour wind reading right across Marathon, 43 in Key West. The flood threat continues all across Broward and Miami-Dade, and that has made the storm surge even worse. Parts of Brickell, for example, where you saw all that dramatic video coming ashore, well, at least 3 or 4 inches of that was due to all the heavy rainfall. It had nowhere to go. The surge came in, it got trapped, and that led to all that flooding. Meanwhile, here are the advisories. A hurricane warning remains in effect, not just here across South Florida, but throughout the rest of the state for obvious reasons. Nothing here will be lifted until this hurricane is well away from South Florida. It's going to take a while, but we will get through this. We're just going to have to give it a little time, at least until midnight, maybe early tomorrow morning before things start to settle down. Back to you guys at the desk.
All right, Phil, thank you. 7 News live coverage on the air, online, and we'll welcome our radio partners because we know there are a lot of you who can't see us, but you're listening to us on Hot 105, Hits 97.3, Easy 93.1, and WEDR 99 Jams. We'll do our best to be the eyes for you since we know you can't see what we are showing you. Those of you who are with us online, Facebook Live, our website, our apps, and of course on television, thanks for being along for this next stretch as we continue to follow the path of Irma, as Phil mentions, the center of the storm, closing in on Marco Island over on the Gulf Coast. In about an hour or a little less time, it will focus, if it maintains its current positioning, right on the heart of Naples in southwest Florida. So there is as ugly as it's been for us here, it's going to be really, really tough for our friends in southwest Florida over the next hour, and we're going to have a lot more on that coming up.
You can't see what's going on, but more than likely you can certainly hear it, because if you've got shutters up or anything else, you're hearing the banging, the driving rain, that howling wind, and it's scary stuff, and there's no way around it. But we're getting through it. Hour by hour, we're getting through it. This is a live picture of North Bay Village now. We've got a pretty bad squall that's rolling through here right now because we can hear the roof above us that is rattling because there's some metal up there. But as Lynn said just before she got off, it sounds scary, but it's secure and it is fine. Those of you with kids in school, as you might imagine, in Miami-Dade County, school suspended Monday, Tuesday for now, no school. And in Broward County, school suspended for now, no classes until further notice. But obviously, a lot of people in Miami-Dade County left their homes for shelters, and a lot of schools in Miami-Dade and Broward counties are those places of shelter. So right now, a lot of those schools are occupied by people who fled their homes trying to get away from Wilma. So Dade County, no school Monday, Tuesday. Broward, nothing for you until further notice. And this is all obviously subject to change as, you know, the mayors of both counties keep us updated on the decisions that their administrations are making in light of what they're seeing in terms of this still powerful storm.
And they evaluate even when their purpose as a shelter is complete. They want to evaluate the structures themselves to make sure they are able to host students and faculty and so on. Too soon for anybody to know what we're dealing with there, although we haven't gotten any indication that any of these buildings have been compromised. I'll just piggyback what you said real quick. I just happened to notice, because again I do work there a little bit, University of Miami is not going to reopen until a week from tomorrow at the earliest. So classes won't resume at UM until I think it's Monday the 18th at the earliest. Stay tuned, that's subject to change.
And think about this, not just the people that have sought shelter there, the structure itself to make sure it's okay, but what about teachers and administrators and support staff at those schools that left town also ahead of Irma because they were concerned, and now they've all got to get back and get back to their jobs. So that might be something that needs to get factored in as well. But lots to think about, lots to organize before, during, and after a storm of this magnitude. That is for sure.
We will, whenever we have them available to share with you, punch up live pictures, and they're going to look like this. I can't tell you which beach this is, but it wouldn't matter all that much because they're all generally going to look like this on the East Coast and now especially the West Coast, where again, the center of this system, the eye, is moving over Marco Island, that beautiful island off Naples as we speak, or just southwest of Naples, and then it's on track to reach the city of Naples not long after. And speaking of Southwest Florida, and again, they are bracing for what is coming. It's actually just now beginning to unfold there. We have a reporter bringing us a little bit more from what they're preparing to deal with over in Southwest Florida. And Nicole Ensalada has that.
Well, we've had high winds in Naples, downtown Naples, for about a half hour, 45 minutes now, and we already have a lot of debris right here. And this is what officials are afraid of. That's why they don't want you to go outside, because you get hit with something like this, you could be seriously injured. Well, sometimes the wind gets very loud, especially when you're standing in a wind tunnel, essentially like this, in between two buildings in downtown Naples. Well, even from a vantage point high up, you can still feel the wind gusts, even though we are under cover. But you can also see the gusts over the tops of these trees, over the tops of those roofs. A moment ago, somebody came out just to check on the situation. They were smart to go right back in.
Live pictures. Nicole Ensalada for us over on the West Coast, where again they're in for a long afternoon as the storm begins to make its mark again. The center of the storm, the core, is headed right there.
And Phil said that was going to take place in a couple of hours.
Less than that.
The Naples, Marco Island area.
But an hour, less than an hour from now.
The winds have dropped. They were at 130. They're about 120 miles an hour now, but still a very powerful storm. This is a live picture. It looks like, I'm going to say 95, possibly, or not. I'm not sure what it is, but or maybe it's Commercial Boulevard. I'm not sure,
95,
but it looks like a highway. The bottom line, no one's on the road, and I mean, why? Why would anybody be on the road at this point if you don't need to be? It's just really, really nasty out there. We're getting Category 1 wind gusts, and that's enough to just really, you know, not want to have you going anywhere. So this is good. Everyone's staying inside, as it should be. And those curfews now, Miami-Dade County, again, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Today into tomorrow, that curfew is going to remain in effect. And really, again, it's just it's an order, but it's something they're telling you not to do, but I feel like no one in their right mind would step out right now to see what's going on.
You know, when we've looked around our community this afternoon, whether it's Brickell, where we've seen the Miami River and the bay right there kind of pour onto the avenue, or you've seen what we see up in this part of northeast Miami-Dade, I think a lot of people who were kind of scoffing at the idea might now understand why it's probably better just to stay inside, and if you can't watch, listen to us on the radio until this thing starts to subside, because there's really no point in being outside. There's nowhere you can go. There's nothing open. And
it's dangerous.
And it's dangerous.
It's dangerous.
Yeah.
Period. The end. It's dangerous. We've showed you time and time again, from one moment to the next, you see, you know, trees and things blowing in the wind, and then these limbs snap off, fall down, crush cars. It could crush you if you're out there. But again, we can't stress it enough. We are only getting, I shouldn't say only, but in comparison to what they're about to feel on Florida's West Coast, we are only getting Category 1 wind gusts. And think about what you're hearing and what you're seeing. And over on the West Coast, that storm is going to make a landfall as a Category 3 storm. So just remember this day when
you tell the story.
Well, not even that, but I mean, I don't want to talk about Jose, but he's out there, and we'll keep an eye on that. But let's focus on the matter at hand, right? But when we start telling you, don't focus on the line, don't worry about the cone, remember Irma. Remember Irma.
Joe Roats is over by the Hotel Intercontinental, at least last time I saw him, in downtown Miami, where Biscayne got a little bit of flooding. Maybe, Joe, you can give us a sense of how things are faring over there now.
Well, right now we're at the Bayside Marketplace, right next to the Bayfront Park Amphitheater. You know, an area that on a Sunday would generally be very busy, but as you can imagine, as we whip around here real quick, it is just dead. I mean, and there is a lot of destruction in this area happening as these. I mean, the mall here has really turned into essentially a wind tunnel as these winds have come through. Take a look over here. That's the Hard Rock Cafe out there. The wind blowing the rain sideways, and you can see, maybe you can see some of the palm trees that are out there going as well. The water here, where all of these boats are docked, not so bad, but we should have video to show you, because we are just feet away from Biscayne Bay right now, and the storm surge there is large. It is actually not safe for anyone, especially us, to be standing down there at this point.
Okay, well, Joe, maybe we'll get back to you. Oh, well, we'll give it a second, see if we can get it for more than a few seconds. Again, folks, Joe's at Bayside giving us a look at the water and some of the damage there. It is right on the waterfront there. As I made the point yesterday, the equipment and this weather, they don't often work well together. But, Joe, I guess you're back.
Hey, guys, we'll try this again. I'll kind of pick up where I left off.
Go for it.
You know, we're standing just off of the side of the marina where boats can dock and actually come up and go to the Bayside Marketplace here. The water has actually encompassed the dock, and I mean, it's a good 1 or 2 feet above it at this point. And Biscayne Bay, the wind is actually pushing the water over the bay and through the Hard Rock Cafe, the little boardwalk area around there, and it just keeps flooding into this area. And the wind is so strong here at the marketplace because, as I mentioned, it's essentially a wind tunnel at this point, that if you look on the ground over here, it's blowing parts of the roof, the lining, the awning off. Right when we were about to go live about a few minutes ago, this piece right over here actually blew off. So, I mean, I'm covered right now, so I should be good. This place has been a ghost town. I have seen, surprisingly, maybe 2 or 3 people coming out here to check it out. I actually believe they're on that large yacht right over there, and that's where they're staying. So they must feel safe and good. But I mean, you can get a good sense of the wind out here, just blowing the rain sideways again at the Hard Rock Cafe. There has been some damage, some minor damage here to the Bayside Marketplace as this storm continues to rip through. But most of this is coming right off the bay and right into the marketplace here as those waves continue to crash in from Biscayne Bay. We'll send it back to you guys.
Okay, Joe, thanks. We'll be checking back with you over the course of the evening. Thanks.
It is really, really tough to watch and see and look at all of that. And people keep asking, is it over? Is it over? When's it over? Are we in it? It's not over yet. We show you the radar, and there's that swath. I mean, maybe you can see it behind us. There's the eye in the middle, Naples and Marco Island, the target for that. That's where it's a Category 3. We're way out here where you see Miami, Homestead, Fort Lauderdale. But all that red tail behind it, that's everything that we're getting now until that red tail doesn't go up above where you see Miami, Homestead, Fort Lauderdale. It's not going to pass, and that's going to take several hours. This is Belky's Nuray terminology, not, National Weather Center terminology, but you guys get the picture, you know?
Well, the one good thing about this, if there's anything, is that the greater distance we put between the center of the storm and South Florida, the more we will see improvement. And right now, it's making one of its closest passes to us. So while the worst of it is at the center, and it gets progressively weaker as you get out from the center, but the more distance we put between the center of the storm, which you can see there on the screen moving in on Marco Island on the west coast, and us, the more we will see improvement here in South Florida.
And again, these are Category 1 wind gusts, only gusts, not even sustained, what we're feeling, and tropical storm as well. Phil, I understand there's a tornado warning we need to share with the folks out there. Tell us about that.
Well, yes, indeed. We have another one of those squally weather events. We have the potential for a tornado that is moving in anywhere between Key Biscayne, Fisher Island, all the way in through Miami Beach, the area right across Miami, all the way north in through points like Glenwood Heights and the area of Little River. And it does include a little portion of North Bay Village. And I don't know if you've been able to hear some of the wind here at our studios, but the report says that there is a severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado near Key Biscayne, and it is moving north at 35 miles per hour. This is what it looks like outside our 7 studios here. The wind is just howling. You can barely see across the bay. The palm fronds and the trees are just bent over. The storm will be near Key Biscayne around 3:25, Virginia Key, Fisher Island, Port of Miami, downtown Miami, and Marlins Park around 3:30. So what we are looking at is an area of weather here. If you're still watching radar, is right over Key Biscayne, howling winds here of about 40-45 miles per hour. It is moving to the north at 35 miles per hour. So it's going to jump basically Biscayne Bay here, moving right across downtown Miami, impacting areas around downtown and heading north rather quickly. Moving to the north at 35. The storm, once again, will be near Key Biscayne at 3:25, Virginia Key, Fisher Island, Port of Miami, downtown Miami, and Marlins Park around 3:30 p.m. All right, so if you're in any of these areas that I just mentioned, you need to go into an interior room in your house, preferably one without any windows, a closet, a bathroom. You've heard the drill by now. Make sure you cover yourself with some pillows, a mattress, an air mattress, anything that you can use to protect yourself, and put as many walls around you as possible. And stay there until you hear me once again and say that it's time for you to come out. I'll repeat the locations once again. Key Biscayne, Virginia Key, Fisher Island, Port of Miami, downtown Miami, and the area right around Marlins Park. This warning will remain in effect until 3:30 this afternoon. The atmosphere right now is just pumped with a lot of activity, and all of that is just going to lead to some more tornadoes popping up across the area. So we need to remain vigilant. And for this area that is under the gun right now, please, 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 please make sure you're in a safe area, a safe shelter. I'm sure that you can hear me from radio, from one of our radio partners, or if we're still in the air with you on TV. As long as you can hear us, you're doing fine. We're going to guide you through this. This tornado warning will be in effect until 3:30. Go to that little safe area. Stay there until you hear me say that it is all clear. Belkys, Craig?
Bill, I apologize. Did you tell us, because the last few times you've had something like this, the storm in which they were embedded, they're moving so fast.
Yes.
You were having a hard time listing all of the communities that potentially would be affected because they're embedded in storms that are going 70, 80 miles per hour, and then they're gone.
We had one earlier today. It was going at 90 miles per hour. This one is moving north at 35. Still very fast, but not at the blazing speed that the earlier ones were moving at. To reiterate, this thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado located near Key Biscayne, moving north at 35 miles per hour. And one of the biggest issues here is going to be the flying debris. You don't want to be sticking your head out and trying to look and see if you see a funnel cloud. First, you're not going to be able to see it due to the blinding sheets of rain. You may not even be able to hear it because there's so much noise with the already windy conditions that are out there. So the best thing to do is just to make sure that you hunker down and get into that small room, that small space with as much stuff as you can around you. Kids with teddy bears, adults with whatever pillows you can find. Key Biscayne, Virginia Key, Fisher Island, Port of Miami, downtown Miami, and Marlix Park until 3:30 p.m.
Okay, Phil.
Phil, really quick, and just to reiterate, you mentioned this before and you explained it. Just because it's a tornado or we're under this warning, doesn't necessarily mean that anything will touch down, per se. Is that correct?
You are correct. Two ways that we can detect tornadoes. One of them, when we issue a tornado warning, is that it has been visibly, somebody actually saw it. It has been spotted. The other way that we know that there's something there is actually through the use of radar. And radar lets us know if there's a spin taking place within the cloud. And if we do notice that spin, that means that there's a good chance of a tornado. And we try to do what's called a short fuse warning. We try to let you know right away before that actual tornado forms. And that's what's happening here. There is a thunderstorm that is capable of producing this tornado, and those ingredients will remain present until 3:30 this afternoon. So until you hear me once again give you that all clear to come out of your little safe area, please stay there, please, and you'll be just fine.
I had asked you a little while ago, and maybe this is associated with that, as the core of the system continues to move up the west side of the state, and there's more distance between South Florida and that, does it take these harsher bands of weather along with it, so we are increasingly on the periphery of the storm where it's even weaker than where we are now?
Not weaker. It's just going to continue to drag them from south to north, and until the eye makes it basically all the way north through Tampa, that's probably going to be the time that we're going to see some weakening. But right now, with that counterclockwise rotation, we're still going to see some strong thunderstorms all across the area.
Phil, Naples is obviously where Irma is headed as a Category 3. How soon before it makes landfall there? It's pretty soon, no?
Pretty imminent. I just want to check something here real quick. Brent, did you say that had been canceled? The tornado, okay, great news, great news. Brent just came on and told me that the tornado warning has been canceled. That is fantastic. So all of you who were kind of hunkered down in that little safe area, it's safe to come out now. This tornado warning has been canceled. Back to the question as far as where Irma is going to make landfall. If we could zoom in back there in the weather office, you're going to notice that there's an eye, there's a spin right across Marco Island. The eye wall has already made landfall across Marco Island, the northeastern edge there. There's a big swath of heavy rainfall, lightning, gusty winds impacting Marco Island, now starting to move in across US 41. And not only are they getting now the heavy rain and the potential winds of all the way up to 100, 115, even 120 mile per hour plus winds here, they're also getting the surge. The counterclockwise spin is pushing all that water from the Gulf of Mexico on shore. There's a lot of estuaries around here, so they could probably take a little bit of water as opposed to us here where we just have ocean and city, so there's really not a buffer. But here they may be able to take in a little bit more of that water, but if they are expecting anything between 10, 15, up to 20 feet, some of the numbers that I heard earlier, that is still going to pose a huge problem as far inland as US 41. US 41 may not be open for traffic for a few days until all that water recedes.
The eye wall is touching there at Marco Island. We have an opportunity to go there live right now.
Not far from there. Nicole Ensalada is over in southwest Florida. And Nicole, you are in Naples, which in the next 20 minutes or so is going to get the business end of this storm.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I hope you guys can hear us. We are here in downtown Naples, and we're just watching. We'll go off here. This is 5th Avenue in Naples. We are in a parking garage. I'm basically keeping a close eye on this roof. The roof, of course, I mean, as of now, seems secure. I'm just watching these little pieces of it, these roof tiles. It looks like little pieces of it occasionally fly off into the air, but you can get a sense now of how the wind has really picked up here, and especially from here, sort of a second-story vantage point. You can see the roofs, you can see the top of the trees. Yeah, little pieces of this roof are just flying off. But what is amazing is I'm also seeing some planters. In fact, if we could go down, just down here, Brad, right there in the parking lot, you can see the planters are remaining in place. I think part of that is because of the direction of the wind. The wind is actually blowing at the front of this building. But boy, look at the palm trees go. And you know, we have been seeing this for the last several hours. In fact, even before the winds even picked up this much, we saw a lot of debris out there when it comes to palm trees and anything that could just hit you when you walk by. So I think that is, you know, so much part of the concern with folks when they tell you to stay inside. I think that's it, probably more than anything else. These random, well, you can see some people trying to run across the street over there. I don't know if you can see them. Yeah, they're on the corner. We have here in this parking garage, we've only run into maybe a couple of other members of the media, but we've also, yeah, that was a little roof tile that just went flying that you may have heard. But there's some folks here with Mississippi State that have sort of camped out here in this parking garage as well. And they are basically weather researchers, and that's why they're here. And they've got a lot to look into with this one. In fact, I'm going to be quiet for a second. Listen to this. And there's some roof tiles. I've got to tell you, the thing is, the sound is almost more impressive sometimes than what we're looking at. For those who are on the radio, just to give you a sense of what we are seeing, we are in a parking garage looking over downtown Naples, which is very similar, 5th Avenue here, to sort of the Los Olas area, parts of Coral Gables, that sort of atmosphere here. And we're just looking down right now. Our vantage point is behind some buildings, some businesses, and then across there's the Inn on 5th. That's right across the street there from us. Actually, I think that's over to the other side. Actually, that's to my right. That's just some businesses over there. Jewelry stores. There's some apartments. There's folks who live in those condominiums that are up on top. In fact, over to our right in this direction, you can see that some of them are boarded up. We talked to some people who did plan to ride it out in there. So far, of course, we've seen nothing in the way of any sort of destruction as far as that's concerned, but we are mostly seeing a lot of this debris. We're seeing a lot of the trees go and that sort of thing. So we're still waiting to see if things get any worse here. The one thing I will tell you is that, you know, we were hearing earlier from the National Weather Service about storm surge, and in fact, the meteorologists here on the West Coast have been very concerned about that. So far here, and we are just a couple of blocks from the Gulf, we've not seen anything like that yet, but I know a lot of that has to do with, you know, the water going out and then the water from the Gulf coming back in. So that may be something that we see, you know, later on, either today or tomorrow. I'm sure Phil can answer that question for us, because I'm really curious about when we might see some of that high water, if we do see it in this area.
Is that
Craig,
a news crew down there that we're seeing, Nicole, or are those just people?
You know, I was wondering that. I'm not sure if they're a news crew, or, like I said, we've seen a lot of these researchers and folks with Mississippi State and some other entities that are not media who have been out here with all sorts of equipment trying to measure the wind and, you know, whatever else. And a lot of, you know, actually for the last several hours, a lot of them have just been in their vehicles. This is the last time I've actually seen them out on the street. So as for those folks in particular, I'm not sure, but it's very interesting that you know, that they're here to try to find out, you know, learn everything they can about this particular storm. And in fact, some of the folks here in Southwest Florida who've lived here for years were saying that door is open. I hope nobody gets in the way of that door. Somehow that door has flown open. They were talking about how, because they've seen some of this water rush out in places where it normally is, especially on Sanibel Island. There's actually somebody in that window. Brad, right there, you see that window to the left? The first window? He might want to get away from that window. Oh, there's a couple people there. They were talking about how because this is the first time, or not the first time, but maybe the first time in maybe generations or decades that they've seen water just sucked up by the Gulf in this way by a storm like this, that this is something that they will be studying for a long time to see its impact. Even Charlie didn't really have this kind of impact. Charlie was a different kind of storm, came from a sort of a different direction. So it seems like this is something that's going to be, that they can really learn a lot from. Of course, we're all learning a lot from it too in terms of preparation, because in South Florida, since Wilma perhaps, we haven't really faced anything like this either. So it's really, I think it's been a big wake-up call for a lot of people.
Hey, Nicole, this is Phil Farrow. I'm just letting you know that there have been
Craig Belkey's? Yeah.
Okay, Nicole, I don't know if you can hear me. This is Phil Farrow. Just wanted to let you know that there have been some very strong wind gusts reported out there.
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
So far, the strongest that we can find has been 82 miles per hour. There are more winds picking up just offshore. You will probably be getting some of the strongest activity here, 100 mile per hour plus winds coming in shortly. And also, one of the updates that we have here, the surge could be anywhere between 10 to 15 feet plus. 10 to 15 feet plus. You were asking when that would arrive. You are going to get first,
right,
kind of like the landfall of the hurricane, and then the surge will just lag behind just a little bit because of the drag on the ocean surface. But as soon as you see the wind coming down, that's because of the passage of the eye. And be careful, because then the surge will start to come in. There's little lag, so it may be anywhere between 30, 40 minutes, and then the water's going to start to come in rather quickly.
Okay, now Phil, if you can hear me, when you say a lag, will we see what looks like clearer skies, or will we just see the wind start to die down? What exactly would that look like, a lag, so that we can identify it maybe when we're in it?
Your first bit of information, or your first tip that the eye is moving towards you, or has moved over you, I should say, is the wind is going to calm down. You may not see clear skies, but the wind will calm down. It's going to give you that false sense of security that everything is fine, the storm is done, but it is not. And if this is the same as what we had down in the Florida Keys, that lull is going to be about 25, 30 minutes before the wind picks up back up again, but from the opposite direction, and that'll be a clear sign that the eye has gone right over you.
Right. And Phil, I don't know if this is a question you can answer. I know some of the meteorologists here were talking about storm surges, as you mentioned, like 3 to 15 feet. In this particular area, do you have any sense of how far inland that could go? Or are we talking about people who are right up by the Gulf?
You know, it depends. There's a lot of areas around there that are kind of estuaries, so they act as a huge sponge, and they are able to soak up a lot of water, as opposed to the East Coast, where you just have water and then cement. There's civilization, so there's no opportunity for Mother Nature to soak up any of that excess water. So it may vary in different locations. If you are in an area right on the coastline where there is construction, where there is a city, a town, a resort, well, then the high water level there, it could be much higher than it will be in areas that are more rural. So that one is going to be a tough one, and that's why they give us those ranges, anywhere between 3, 5, 10 feet. Everything depends on the area, along with how strong the wind is at the time, pushing the water on shore.
Right, okay. And you said the lag time would maybe be a couple of hours or less?
After the eye has gone through down across the Florida Keys, it was about a 30-minute time frame of calmness with the eye, and then the surge happened, at least here in Miami-Dade, happened about an hour or so later. For you, it may be sooner because you're much closer to the center of circulation than we are. Okay. I also want to keep you updated. We just received another wind gust of 115 miles per hour, very close to you. So that means that eye wall is coming closer along with the eye. So please, heads up, be very careful, and stay out of those direct winds.
Okay, definitely. Thank you very much for the information, Craig and Belkis.
Well, thank Phil. Craig and Belkis are just listening to Phil intently, and obviously we're worried for your safety as well, Nicole. So
okay, thank you, Phil. Thank all of you guys.
No, she's not. She's in a garage, not directly being impacted by the wind, which is a good thing.
I know, and Nicole asked about this, and Phil addressed it, but I can't. I think of when you think of the landscape of Southwest Florida, Cape Coral, which is just over the bridge, I guess, from Fort Myers. It's the most populous city in Southwest Florida, and it's a series of canals. Now, when I lived there almost 30 years ago, it was just canals and a lot of empty lots. Now it's a lot of single-family homes and commercial districts and so on. And the concern is that when the surge comes in, it has all of these little avenues to go, the water, and then if there's too much, it comes up.
Now, let me ask you, what's the building code situation there?
And that's
because,
another matter.
Post-Andrew, Miami-Dade County got so tight with the rules.
And I'm no expert, and those out there, please feel free to write in, but, you know, we have the strongest building code in Florida as a result of Andrew.
Because of Andrew.
It's built better, it's built tougher, it's built stronger. Other parts of the state have the opportunity to follow our lead after our experience in 1992. My sense was a lot of them did not, and a lot of it's cost-driven. So I was talking to somebody the other day about, do I stay, when we thought the storm was coming here for a direct hit, and the question was, do I stay here in a building that I know is made really well and deal with a 4 or a 5, or go up to Central Florida and deal with a 1 or a 2 in a building that's not built as well?
And the costs are less expensive homes there, and insurance and everything else.
I do, though, from their experience with Charlie in 2004, in Charlotte County, Port Charlotte, which is over there, it's Collier County with Naples, Lee County with Fort Myers, Charlotte County with Port Charlotte. It mainly affected, or largely affected, Port Charlotte and Charlotte County. Their building code was stepped up, and there's not as much concern there because they learned, as we did, by a tough experience. But we'll have to see as this
on the other
unfolds.
end of this thing.
Yeah.
This is a live picture basically right outside our front door, so to speak. This is North Bay Village. It is really coming down hard here right now. And I don't know what the wind is out there, but it must be pretty bad. You know, we're in a big studio. There's a lot of metal here and stuff, and the inside shakes a little, so it makes a lot of noise. And maybe you're hearing that at home because this is what's happening outside right now. It is just really, really ugly out there.
Let's have another look at what's happening outside. Steve Shapiro has been spending some time at Hollywood Beach, and here's what he sent us.
We just dodged the tornado. Here's the deal. Make a deal with me. We're going to tell you what's going on Hollywood Boulevard, on A1A in Hollywood, and then we're going to head for cover. That's our deal. Hollywood Boulevard there. Look at the flooding that's going on A1A at Harrison Street. We're getting, oh man, we're getting rain, not just rain. Actually, it's salt water. So it's coming from the beach. Oh, photographers getting blown everywhere, brother. You can see the flooding on A1A and Harrison Street. And then Scott, to your right. Oh, brother. Over here is the Intracoastal behind you, Scott. The Intracoastal behind me. Oh, my goodness. If that thing floods and that comes up here onto A1A, oh, man, that's a serious problem. And look at the current going on the Intracoastal, too, man. Oh, wow. Flowing south to north. It is really whipping, as is the rain. As I said, I can taste salt water. So what we're getting is not just rain, it's actually beach water. All right, I've kept my end of the deal. Be safe.
Steve Shapiro sent us that a few minutes ago, how it looks up at Hollywood Beach.
Again, this is North Bay Village. We showed you the live picture, and now we have a reporter out there to tell us what's going on. Rebecca Vargas, you're out there behind us.
Yeah, Belkis, we just had a really massive gust come through with a lot of rain sideways. It seemed to die down just a little bit, but we continue to get those continuous gusts. Now, as for that flooding that we were showing you, the storm surge a little bit, it's still happening here, and it appears another tree has in fact snapped. So we're seeing again debris with these winds. You can see the wind just blowing across the water here on our parking lot, across the bay. Again, it looks like an ocean out here, and this is just Biscayne Bay, not too far from Miami, their bridge over, but this is completely surrounding our studios here. The winds have never been stronger. Obviously, we're hearing it a lot in the studio, but being out here, it's amazing how strong these winds are. Our satellites, even the different equipment we have along our buildings here, are shaking in the wind pretty violently there. Hopefully they hang on pretty tight. They're meant to withstand a lot of wind, but we're starting to really see the power and the impacts here on North Bay Village. Again, these condos over here, you can see not only the wind, but those waves smacking up against the seawall there as well. It just seems like there's no rest for the weary over here on North Bay Village with this water and these winds. The gusts just continue to get stronger and stronger every time we come out to get an update and check on it. So obviously those bands are still being felt here on North Bay Village. You know, one thing I'm thinking about with the flooding and storm surge that we're seeing all over South Florida is that, you know, you really have to be aware that there's going to be debris underneath that water at some point when we do get to go out. You know, we're starting to see pieces of debris even in these floodwaters. They've receded just a little bit, but before you would have never known that there's debris under there. So that's a big consideration when you definitely get to go back outside. Obviously, that's something we're not supposed to be doing just yet. We do need to ride this out because we are in some of the strongest bands still at this time. Belkis, Craig?
Without a doubt, and we see it there behind you, Rebecca, the crashing waves, and that's what we've been telling everyone this whole time: the storm surge, storm surge, storm surge, and that's what we're seeing.
It's true. It really is true, and we're just thinking about some of those condos over there. Hopefully, that the seawall is protecting them somewhat, but taking a look at what we're seeing in our own parking lot, I can only imagine that they're getting some water up onto their yards and then possibly even into the first floor here, at least along North Bay Village.
Rebecca, were you out in the parking lot? I mean, just for the interest of the people that have been in this building for the past more than 24 hours, what does the parking lot look like? Because a lot of us have our cars parked out there. Is it flooded? You know, what's the deal?
We have a couple different areas to be able to get out into our parking lot. Right now we have one door that we're able to access, which is this one. We do have some elevation here. Our camera can't go too far, but we have some elevation. We can go down and walk into it, but it is pretty flooded here. As for the other side, it doesn't seem to be too flooded. This part does dip down a little bit, so it probably makes the access a little bit closer. But you know, so far our parking lot is seeing some water, maybe a couple of inches. I wouldn't say feet here, but we are definitely seeing some inches of water. Yeah, okay, Rebecca, thanks. I did go out there a little. You know, we've got all the reporters out in the field and everyone's out there. I put on my raincoat a little, not now because this is a really bad squall, but a couple of hours ago I just went out there because I wanted to see and feel, you know, what's out there. Sure. And just the few steps you take out, it's like the trees are down, there's branches everywhere. It's just a mess. Have you been out there at all?
I poked my head out. No, I didn't.
No, I physically put on my raincoat and went out there and just took a little peek around that big tower in the middle. Yeah. And there's trees down and everything else, but I didn't see any trees on any cars, so that's the good news.
That is the good news.
Yeah.
Guess we want to share this. We're getting this from...
This is the National Weather Service. Irma officially made landfall in Marco Island at 3:35 as a Category 3 hurricane.
So that's 10 minutes ago, and the distance between Marco Island and Naples is not that great. So if the northern edge of the eye wall made Marco Island about 10 minutes ago, then it's on approach to Naples, not far from where Nicole Ensenada is, because again, the distance between Marco and Naples is not that far. And it says here, when it made landfall in Marco as a Cat 3, a 130 mile, I think Phil told us this, a 130 mile per hour wind gust was reported by the Marco Island Police Department there. So it's a Cat 3, so we're grateful it wasn't a 5 as it had been for a while, or even a Cat 4, but 130 miles per hour is still nothing to dismiss as no big deal, because that's a pretty strong wind.
And it's moving at 12 miles an hour, which was a little faster than it was
Yeah.
moving before when it stalled a little.
Yeah. It had slowed to, I
and
think,
everyone was
6.
like, oh, is this the storm? Is this it?
Yeah.
Remember? Remember that? Remember you were saying that? Here you are. Let's check back in with Nicole Ensalada. She is in Naples, pardon me, where the storm is about to get near you, Nicole.
Yep, here I am. Yeah, hold on. We're getting ourselves ready here with a light and everything so you can see a little bit better. We've come down to the bottom of the parking garage here, the bottom floor. And I want to give you a sense. There's a neighborhood right here next to the, let's see, the Gulf is that way? Yes, that way. Okay. So if the Gulf is that way, this is north. So this is a neighborhood just north of the Fifth Avenue area in downtown Naples. And you may be able to see here all the debris that's sort of lining this roadway because we've been having high winds now, you know, for hours. It's really, of course, picked up in the last several minutes, especially. But, you know, we've been having pretty sustained high winds for a while. So I'm going to step out here. You can see that also the tops of these trees are just sort of sheared off a little bit. So let me, in fact, I'm going to get over here a little bit more so I can talk to you a little bit more clearly and you can see a little bit better. So this looks like it's sort of a duplex. We saw some folks actually step outside just for a moment. Listen to the wind. I have to tell you, sometimes you hear that, and in fact, my photographer, Brad Freakin, even said at one point, do you sometimes hear somebody screaming? It's the wind. That's what we're hearing. And sometimes it's even more, as I said, it's even more impressive than what we're seeing. And if you're listening to us on the radio, we're looking at a home, duplex with a lot of trees in front. The home looks like it's doing okay, but there are huge, just gusty winds, you know, right over it. A lot of wind damage in terms of trees and branches and that sort of thing, the kind of things that you can easily clean up once all is said and done. There are people inside. We saw them in there. They are boarded up. We saw them poke their heads out and then get right back in. So that is what we are looking at. It actually seems like the wind is sort of blowing toward the Gulf, if I'm not mistaken. So this is what we're feeling right now. Actually, I'm doing fine standing up where I am because I'm sort of right here in this entrance of this parking garage. Listen again. Yeah, occasionally it almost sounds like a siren. So that's the kind of winds that we've been hearing now, and this has been pretty sustained now for the last several minutes. And Craig, I heard you talking earlier about Cape Coral. Yeah, I mean, it is loaded with canals, just crisscrosses of canals. And you probably remember, like you mentioned, when it was all empty lots. So many homes there now. And when I lived there, there wasn't a lot of, in terms of trees, big, you know, large trees or anything like that, just homes across sort of a landscape right there on the water. We know that, of course, they had mandatory evacuations there. And one wonders what's going to be the effect, look at all this rain, of the storm surge, you know, on those neighborhoods there where all these homes, not only with all the canal systems there, but the Caloosahatchee is right there as well. Craig, Belkis?
Also a big concern with the Caloosahatchee, as we mentioned, that's the river that cuts through downtown Fort Myers, separates Fort Myers from North Fort Myers, and at its widest point, it's about a mile wide and very deep, and then as you get further into the city, it becomes narrower and shallower, and when the surge is pushed in, there's nothing it can do but overflow. So that's another, I mean, the storm surge there is a real concern in Southwest Florida, to say nothing of the fact they're dealing with a Cat 3. They've got the surge, the rain, and the winds. They're really getting the brunt of this system. It's you feel for everybody there.
Trifecta of badness. Nicole, you're in an apartment building. You are in a garage. There's houses behind you. That's a residential area. Describe for us a little bit where you are, and especially for our radio listeners, what you're seeing.
Sure. Absolutely. Okay, yeah, we are on we're just off Fifth Avenue in Naples. So for those who've never been here, it's very similar to, say, Los Olas or Coral Gables. It's that sort of strip of you know, upscale restaurants, bars. There's a couple of hotels. At the end of it, the Gulf end of it, similar once again to Las Olas, there's a residential area, very high-end, beautiful homes right there on the Gulf. We are in a, whoa, this may have been the biggest gust strongest, most strong, if I can say it right, strongest gust we have seen thus far. So that's the kind of area we are in. We are in a parking garage right there off of 5th, and then on the other side of this parking garage, you're seeing just sort of a residential area, just homes like the one that you see behind me. As I mentioned, it's sort of a duplex. It's got a lot of, it's boarded up. There are trees out front. Some folks, as I mentioned, stepped out, took a look, took a couple of pictures, and went back in. Brad, I don't know if you can see that. Look at the wind right there. That's sort of a wind tunnel we've got right there, in between the parking garage and the back end of that building. So we're mostly surrounded, right here there are businesses, but homes also surrounding this parking garage too. So you've got a real gamut, runs the gamut here. And the Gulf is only, gosh, 3-4 blocks away. So the Gulf of Mexico is very close. You see these folks here, they're from Mississippi State. They are here trying to record everything that they can about this. They are meteorologists, they're researchers, and they are doing what we are doing. They're trying to learn everything that they can about the storm. But of course, they will use it so that next time, or all the other times after this, all the meteorologists can, have a lot more information about predicting these kind of storms. But I have to tell you though, since driving around very early this morning, we saw very few people out. So people really did heed the warnings here. Lee County, which is Fort Myers, had 30,000 people just in that county alone who went to shelters. 30,000 people in Lee County. Fort Myers being the biggest city there. So that's pretty impressive. 14 shelters, and they were just adding them as they saw fit, as they needed them. There was a great demand for them once the evacuation orders all came through. And now when you see this, you can see why. I mean, look at this. And this is just the wind. This is not even the storm surge, should that come, which everyone seems to be predicting that it will, especially in some of the areas closest to the Gulf.
Yeah, we'll understand,
Craig,
Nicole, we'll understand if you have to stop and move, because that's the real concern, being so close to the Gulf. When that wind pushes that water in, it comes surging in, and you got to get out of the way. But I'm glad, Nicole, you had a chance, you and Brad, to show us that she's in a protected structure. The weather's happening all around her. She, with those students from Mississippi who, again, they're in training to become meteorologists
researchers,
themselves. Yeah. But that's how she's able to do this. She's in that enclosed structure, not out in it, because, quite frankly, she wouldn't be able to stand out in it. Neither would he.
No.
With all that gear.
Get knocked right over. Let's bring it back here for a second and see how things are looking along the Miami River. Katrina Bush has that.
Well, we have found a safe place to park so we can kind of get a break from these intense winds and the whipping rains, but we can still see from where we are the effects of the winds and rains. Take a look out onto the Miami River and you can see how the winds are just whipping up the top surface layer of the river along with the rains and just causing kind of a whiteout conditions at times. This is a little bit lighter than we've seen over the last little bit, but the river has already come up onto the seawall and onto the Miami River Walk trail here. Just across the street, that condo building, we did see a couple of people come outside and take some pictures, because just look at how amazing this is. So just hard for people to stay inside, but they just took some quick pictures and went back inside. When I saw them, I then kind of looked just about 10, 11 stories up to this rooftop patio where you can see those palm trees up there are really taking a beating. And just to the left of that, that's the whiteout conditions that I'm talking about. We can barely make out those buildings. Again, here along the Miami River. And just to the other side of us, we're seeing the effects of the winds and the rain on these trees. A couple of small trees. One of them just snapped right in half, and then a palm tree there on the other side of that fence has fallen over. So we are keeping an eye on the conditions here in the downtown area, and we'll continue to update you as soon as we get in some more pictures. Reporting in Miami, Katrina Bush, 7 News.
Another report from the Miami River, another overflow situation there. I can't believe what Brickell looks like.
Well, I think a lot of people were surprised by it. But
wow.
as Phil and everybody's been saying, look, you've got the river there, you've got the bay there, and these are areas that are prone to storm surge. So as we hand it over to Phil, we're going to get ready to hand things over to Jeff and Lynn for the next stretch here, and we'll see you shortly. And Phil?
All right, so we have another tornado warning right now for northeastern Broward County and southeastern Palm Beach County for an area highlighted in red, if you can still see us. If you're only listening to us, there's a severe thunderstorm located just east of Pompano Beach with another severe thunderstorm east of Fort Lauderdale. Now, both of them are moving northwest at 55 miles per hour. Some of the locations that could be impacted by this tornado: Fort Lauderdale, Coral Springs, Pompano Beach, Sunrise, and Boca Raton. Now, let me give you some more cities that could be impacted here. Starting from south to north: Lauderdale Lakes, Oakland Park, Tamarack, Pompano Beach. We continue to move up across Coral Springs, Deerfield Beach, and Parkland, and then points north here into southeastern Palm Beach County. If we can go over to the radar, there is a cell, basically two of them, a severe thunderstorm east of Pompano Beach, and then another severe thunderstorm located east of Fort Lauderdale. Both of them moving to the northwest at around 55 miles per hour. So these things are really moving extremely fast. They are moving almost from south to north here in our radar imagery. The National Weather Service says that they're basically heading more northwest. The big issue, as always, with these tornadoes will be flying debris. They're moving extremely fast. You may not even have any time, if you're stepping outside, which you shouldn't, if you're stepping outside to look at this, by the time you can't even hear it because you're just hearing the regular wind that's out there howling right now. So by the time you even see it or hear it, it's too late to react. So again, I want to repeat most of the major cities here that are under the gun as far as this tornado warning. They include Fort Lauderdale, Coral Springs, Pompano Beach, Sunrise, and Boca Raton. And this tornado warning will remain in effect until 4:30 this afternoon. Now, if we can quickly go now over to the satellite imagery of this Hurricane Irma. It has made landfall across Marco Island just a few minutes ago with wind speeds of about 115 miles per hour. The eye is just making its way on shore right across the area. And the satellite imagery suggests that the cloud cover extends from the Gulf of Mexico all the way into the Florida Keys, up and down the coast here, and as far north as central and northern Florida. One of the things to note, that now this eye is basically at the same latitude as Miami and Fort Lauderdale. So slowly now, things are going to start to improve, and I mean slowly. This eye will continue to track towards points north, basically moving towards the northwest. So we should start to see things clearing to the northwest. Now, for the next few hours, possibly until 9, 10 o'clock tonight, nothing is going to change. We're still going to see the same conditions we have now. As we near midnight, we're going to see less of the rainfall, less of the strong gusty winds. And then overnight and tomorrow, we are going to see just some feeder bands coming across, kind of like what we had yesterday, which means you get some thunderstorms coming through rather quickly with some gusty winds. Then everything settles down for a while. The sun will come out. Everything will be nice. And then you get another feeder band coming across until the system gets all the way in through the Florida's Big Bend or even just north of Tampa. Then I think things will definitely improve here for us. And by then, it might be either Tuesday evening or by the middle of the week, Wednesday. So all in all, right now, it looks like after we see this tornado warning expire, things will slowly start to improve. We will probably see less of all that heavy rainfall. The improvement will begin for the Keys, followed by Miami-Dade County from south north, and then Broward, and then moving in through Palm Beach County. Also, I do believe that most of the tornadic activity will also continue to move to points north in through Palm Beach and beyond. Again, little by little now, things will start to improve here across South Florida. Belkis, Craig?
Belkis and Craig are taking a little break. Phil, thank you so much.
I should take a little break.
We just keep rotating. Thank you so much. No worries. Lynn Martinez along with Jeff Lennox here. Phil, thank you. That's probably the best news we've heard in nearly a week. Phil says the end is near, at least when it comes to the rain and the strong winds. We're going to be dealing with repairs and cleanups in the next couple of days. Phil just said that things will start to improve. The wind will subside, the rain will subside later on tonight.
And our urgent focus right now, Lynn, is on the southwest coast of Florida. Of course, we have the storm surge and the flooding here in South Florida, but that eye of Hurricane Irma, as I'm looking at the radar, is pushing on shore right now, getting very, very close to that eye wall to 7's Nicole Ensalada. She is in Naples at a very safe location inside of a parking deck, so we'll be checking in with her over the course of the 4 o'clock hour. But right now, I believe we want to turn our focus to Fort Lauderdale, right?
Yeah, Brandon Beyer has been hunkered down right by the beach there. We spoke to you a short time ago, and it was nasty, and it looks even worse now. The flooding is really, I guess, that storm surge. Brandon?
Yeah, these winds just haven't let up. I mean, it's been, sorry. I'm gonna come a little closer. Hasn't let up at all here on the beach. That had to be a 50-mile-an-hour gust just now, but we have been seeing sustained, easily 35, 40. And you can see behind me, in fact, you'll be able to see the sand coming off of the beach as Steve zooms in there. That's just a little bit of debris on the street there. The winds have shifted, though. I just heard Phil talk about the eye of the storm is basically on the same, just across from Miami now. And since that's happened, that's shifted the winds. The palm trees were going due west, and now that the wind's coming out of the south, palm trees are facing due north. They're just still hanging in there. We haven't seen any trees snap, which is a good indication that, we haven't seen any gusts over that, Category 1 level of 75 miles per hour or so. But this is a pretty dangerous situation out on the beach. As far as the elements go, it's going to be a cleanup. It's going to be what we're so used to with as far as Fort Lauderdale goes. It's crazy. I know it looks like it's raining a lot, but I think it's mostly sand. The rain is it's been steady, but yeah, I'm gonna have to come back in a little bit, guys.
Opener? Okay.
Yeah, really, really strong winds there, consistently strong. Every time we've gone to Brandon, good. You're taking, yeah, I noticed you put your finger in your mouth because you're probably getting a lot of sand and salt in your mouth.
It's flying. They're both flying through the air. That is just whipping around, and it's really much safer to be in an area like this. We're on in the awning of one of the hotels here. They're all closed, of course. Our hotel's next door. Lost power. Everyone's lost power on Fort Lauderdale Beach, just like so much of South Florida at this point. But take a look at those waves out there. I mean, that's just an incredible image to see that it's been going on like that. For a day and a half now. We did these live shots all day yesterday, and I can remember thinking like, wow, this is intense, and we've still got a whole nother day of this to go. And then we woke up this morning. I could hear it through the hotel window. I knew the winds were significantly more. And then we look out the window. I just said, okay, it's time to get out there again, because this was, this storm was a whole nother level from what we saw yesterday. And I think this is the most we're going to see. The storm, right there, even with this, and the wind's just whipping out of the south. And hopefully, as it continues to move to the north, we gradually will start to see those, improving conditions. And I promise you, we're looking forward to that.
Brandon, you can probably best compare for us. I mean, last night we were watching you. You had some of the most significant rain bands that we saw yesterday evening. It looks like the wind now more consistent. Is that what you've noticed out there?
Yeah, it was more rain yesterday. Exactly, Jeff. It was just at times just driving. I think one of the last live shots we did with you, what time was it? Midnight or so, a little bit after, and we were just pouring down rain. But the wind wasn't as bad, maybe 25, 30 miles per hour. I mean, you could feel it. It was significant. In the rain, better, yeah, okay. And the rain was sideways, but nothing like what we're seeing right now. This is pretty tough to stand in. The rain's less, but the wind is up.
Brandon, most of our listeners and viewers are actually listening to us on radio stations. We're simulcasting on radio stations because 3/4 of our viewers have lost power. So if you could describe what you see, I mean, the sea looks so angry. Sure. Can you even see the seawall? Give us a description.
Yeah, and I'll have Steve shoot out there just in case. maybe you're on a generator already, but yeah, my fault. I tend to forget that we need to, describe things dually here for folks, the majority of our audience right now, who's at home, hunkered down with their families and listening to the radio. I would describe it, think about this, the oceans that we're used to in South Florida. You wake up, if it's a beach day, and flat calm is the description that you use a lot. This would be the polar opposite of that. Think of those crashing waves you see on the beaches of like Hawaii or the Northern California beaches, where those just slamming up against the rocks. It looks like that, except it's here in South Florida, and it's mixed with just a swirling wind and the sand just swirling. It's just it's something that, until you see it, or until you hear it described as white caps as far as you can see and 10-foot waves just right off the beach. It's unbelievable, and I can't even imagine what the waves are going to look like, what the ocean, the Gulf rather, is going to look like, for Nicole and all of our friends and family over on the West Coast. Because if this is what the near miss looks like, my goodness, it's just going to be something to see over there.
Yeah, we've all felt that way, Brandon. If this is the near miss, what can we expect for everybody who had the eye? Cudjoe Key and Key West early this morning, and then this eye is about to hit Naples, where Nicole is. Thank you very much, Brandon Beyer, reporting live there on Fort Lauderdale Beach, as he has been the last couple of days. It looks like that seawall is holding up so far, but we'll know more about the damage tomorrow. Thank you, Brandon.
Okay, we got some wind reports right here. Meteorologist Carlene Chavis just brought these out to me as we looked at the southwest coast of Florida. A 130-mile-per-hour wind gust was recently reported by the Marco Island Police Department. Again, the eye just coming on shore there a short while ago. A 71-mile-per-hour wind, sustained wind, and 97-mile-per-hour wind gust recently reported at a weather station in Naples, and that is where Nicole Enchilada is. The radar right there, you can see that eye wall and the eye itself starting to make its way on up the southwest coast of Florida. You can see the intense rainstorms, the lightning that is just wrapping around that eye right there on the 7 storm tracker.
Yeah, also getting from Carlene Chavis, just handed me this information, unconfirmed report of a spotter on Marco Island reporting significant damage. So somebody reporting significant roof damage and trees shredded. They're describing the trees as being shredded all over Marco Island. Maximum sustained winds of over 112 miles an hour, with wind gusts up to 129 miles per hour. So you can imagine what the damage is going to be, and you can imagine, what these poor people are going through. These are live pictures. This is Nicole Enchilada and Brad Freakin's camera right here in Naples, and look at the wind. It is whipping that rain so hard it almost looks like snow, like when it just sort of, there's a light dusting of snow, and it's the rain, the wind is just so incredibly strong. And this looks like just consistent rain right here. It's not even a wind gust. So, and this isn't the worst of it. The eye has not completely passed over Naples.
Yeah, expecting those sustained winds in Naples to increase over the next few minutes. And just look at those palm trees bending in that intense wind that is currently pushing through parts of southwest Florida. Our photographer right there, Brad Freakin, giving us these amazing, incredible images. Good thing they're both safe inside of that parking garage, and we want them to stay there throughout the most intense part of Hurricane Irma as she begins to hug the coast right there of Florida. Lynn, we saw the way in which Hurricane Irma, really the eye wall just kind of hugged the coast of Cuba, then it made that northward turn toward Key West and the Middle Keys, and now we're seeing the eye hug the coast of Florida as it makes its way on up through the Tampa Bay area, similar to what it did in Cuba, and still intense winds packed inside of this system.
Brad is such a good photographer. He's showing us, sort of talking to us through his camera. Yeah. You can see he was showing us, it looked like water coming from the gutter, like it didn't even get a chance to go down the gutter. This is such a windstorm. The rain is just being pushed horizontal, either on the roof or off of the beach here. And again, this is a really beautiful part of Naples, high-end area. Nicole describes it, and if you've been there, you agree with her. It's kind of like the Las Olas there of Naples. They're hunkered down in a parking garage, and look at the wind just wrapping around the corner here. Thank goodness they're in a safe spot there in this parking garage while you look at these live pictures out of Naples. Also getting word from our meteorologist, sustained 93-mile-per-hour wind gusts to 122 miles per hour at Naples Municipal Airport. So they are getting wind gusts up to 122 miles per hour there at the airport in Naples.
And what was it, maybe a 5-minute gap there? It was 71 miles per hour.
Yes.
And then what is it right there?
122.
122. So that just gives you an idea of how quickly conditions can worsen.
You can't even see. You can't even see past. I'm so bad with numbers, but I want to say, like, I don't know, how many yards would this be? Past this building. You can't see
maybe
anything.
25 yards, you know, as you look out. Barely making out those palm trees whipping in the wind. Again, these are live pictures. If you can see us, if you're watching on the web, I know a lot of people are watching around the world right now, tuned into WSVN.com. If you're listening on our simulcast on the radio, we'll do our best to describe these pictures. A couple of buildings outside of a parking garage right here in the Naples area. And again, like Lynn mentioned, you can barely make out the images here, but there is rain that is horizontal. These winds are pushing the trees almost to their breaking point in the intense winds. Again, those sustained winds now over 100 miles per hour in the Naples area as the eye of Hurricane Irma is now really having a huge impact on southwest Florida.
I'm looking at the Doppler radar from a local television station there, and it looks like the eye is getting very, very close to land there on Naples or at the city there. So our hearts go out to everybody there. We hope they're hunkered down. They say winds there in Naples, as we've been reporting, can go up to 120 miles an hour. Wow. And they're expecting 8 inches to 14 inches through Monday in Naples. I mean, Nicole, you're right there. You know, obviously you don't want to go too far. You know how to keep yourself safe. Okay, she can't hear us. If she ever wants to talk, just go ahead and talk. Go ahead, Nicole. If you can hear me, go ahead.
I've been... No, I can hear you. I can hear you. We've been listening to you, and I wanted to show you a couple of images from here. I mean, you've been watching this corner here for a while, and you can really see the impact of the wind. I'm going to step out a little bit more just so I'm not all up in the lens and blocking your view. I don't know if it's safe for the equipment to show you over here. I heard you mention that it's almost like whiteout conditions. And look at the water just flowing off the buildings as well, but you can barely see those trees. At least me standing here, not watching it on television, I can barely see them. Sometimes you just see this wall of wind and water, and it almost looks like it could be a snowstorm. If you didn't know better, it's just an absolute, a whiteout condition. There's no other way to really put that. I wanted to show you something else though inside this parking garage. If you could follow me over here about the water coming down. This is why, the water can be just so destructive just to property. These folks who parked in this parking garage, look at the water just absolutely pouring down nonstop. And I don't know, how long that water will keep flowing, but I'm not sure about how these cars are going to fare in all of this. In fact, if we could look over now to the right, I'm not sure if it's safe for the equipment to do so, but if you look over to the right, this is one of the entrances to the parking garage, and just beyond, you can see that you can't see what is out there. You can't see the street. You couldn't see another car. You couldn't see if a person was walking there. There's some folks there in the stairwell. I mentioned earlier we had some folks from Mississippi State here. I think those are some of them as well. We've seen no other people trying to, ride out the storm in this parking garage. We're going to walk back over here, although there is another parking garage in Naples where we did see people trying to do that. So let's go back here. You can see that there's some, hey, how are you? Somebody else out here trying to take a look at the storm from here. She's, I think, dodging out of the way. You doing okay?
Yeah, I'm good. You guys?
Okay, are you a storm chaser? We're live in Miami. Can we talk to you real quick?
Sure, what's up?
Yeah, tell me, I mean, you probably have a lot of experience with these, I would imagine. How does this look to you?
This is pretty common for a category, 3? It's pretty good. I think it's doing some damage more to the palm trees. I've seen a lot of debris in the road. I'm just waiting for that storm surge coming. That's really my concern at the moment. Other than that, it's just the winds. I mean, you can hear it coming off the buildings. I mean, this gutter's about to, I don't know how much rain this is going to be able to handle. On the top floor, you have water that's already ponding in the top floor of the deck. Water is just sitting everywhere.
Are you with Mississippi State? We know there's some folks here with Mississippi State.
No.
Are you with them? No.
No.
What's your name?
I'm Emily.
Emily, and who are you with? Are you by yourself? Or are you?
My company is T-Storms. I'm from New Hampshire.
And this is what you do?
Yes.
Okay. And do you record what you're seeing?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and how come, this was my question, how come we've seen these very strong winds and we've been watching a lot of these trees and I haven't seen the trees actually come down. I've seen a lot of debris from branches, that sort of thing.
That is a really good question. I haven't really seen that either, but we might as the back wind starts to come back over. So we have the eye wall that's passing. I think it's already going right now. I'm pretty sure as soon as those are done, we're gonna see those stronger winds as the, woo, like now. I mean, the only thing that we're not feeling is the full winds is because we have these buildings protecting us. Here we go.
We're gonna let you get inside. We're gonna do the same.
All right.
Well, stay safe. We'll be talking to you soon. So you can see that those are the folks that we're actually seeing out here. Folks who are mostly interested in recording this sort of thing. We have not seen no folks at all who've been out on the street who just came out just to be curious. We haven't seen that. And it's a really good thing. Lynn, Jeff, I'm going to see if you have anything else you would like to ask me.
I think you're so dedicated, Nicole, asking us to ask you a question in hurricane force winds. Jeff and I were just commenting on the picture. It was so surreal. You interviewing a woman with storm chasers. T-Storms, give her company a little cred here with the Z at the end. While you have these hurricane force winds that are whipping so strong, it looks like you're in a snowstorm. Incredible that you actually found somebody to talk to. I'm going to give it a little bit of some numbers here, and so is Jeff, and then we'll ask you a question if you're still with us. Again, you're looking at a live picture, and for those listening to us on the radio, this is a live description of the eye about to hit Naples. They're expecting rain up to 14 inches, but as we all know, this is more of a wind event. Expecting storm surge 1 to 9 feet in Naples through Monday.
And just received another update on the wind speeds, Nicole, that you're experiencing at Naples Municipal Airport. They're receiving pretty frequent gusts at 131 miles per hour. That was at 4:10 p.m. about 7 minutes ago. So you're seeing wind gusts well into that Category 3 range for a hurricane. And as we're watching you, again, for our viewers that can see this image, Nicole is safe. She's in a parking garage area, so very secure walls around her and our photographer, Brad Freakin, as they bring you these incredible images of Hurricane Irma as that eye wall, as I'm looking at the radar, is again pushing up the coast of Southwest Florida. It has already made its way over Marco Island, and now that eye wall area is around Nicole Enchilada right now there in Naples. Nicole, again, you're with a few people out there watching this storm. Give us some more information about what you're seeing out there.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, I can tell you one of the folks from Mississippi State just ran up to us and said he had clocked 120-mile-an-hour winds right outside this parking garage. So, and that's really what they've been doing, is clocking the winds and doing what needs to be done to try to figure out exactly how the storm is reacting. I'm just trying to keep an eye, and to be honest with you, I have been fairly surprised with the strength of these winds and the water that I haven't, as we were talking to Emily there with T-Storms, how we haven't seen more in the way of any sort of damage in terms of trees going down. I have not seen a roof, but then again, we are in one very small area. I mean, this is one very small area of Collier County. There could be, other vantage points that we have not yet had the chance to check out, but you can just see here the force of these winds. And I can tell you, we are also now starting to see more of the force of the water, and even in the garage, how it's rapidly coming up. If we have a moment here, we have Brant Beckman from Mississippi State. How are you doing?
I'm doing as well as I can at this point.
Tell me why you are out here. What is it exactly about the storm that you're trying to study?
Well, if you want to be a good forecaster, I believe you have to bear witness to these events. You think about the people being affected by this, and you want to be able to do better forecasts and to help people prepare. People are prepared for this storm because they got good forecasts, and we want to be able to do that better, and that's why we're here.
These winds, I was talking to another young lady out here who's doing similar work to what you're doing. We were trying to figure out why we haven't seen any of the large trees go down yet, not in this neighborhood anyway. Are these winds just deceptive? I mean, they're strong.
These are very strong wind gusts. We are in a part of town that's extremely well built up. Some areas of town that might not be as well built up are probably experiencing some structural damage. Around here, We have seen gusts around 120 miles per hour. Sustained winds are maybe around 65 to 70 miles per hour. And there's a big difference there. But lots of vegetation, you know, as we probably saw in the parking garage. Wind gusts around this corner and in between buildings can easily gust higher than the surrounding areas because of the way the wind funnels through.
How much are you worried about storm surge? Even in the last few minutes, I've seen more water come through here than we saw in hours before.
It's very important to follow the directive of the National Weather Service, the Hurricane Center. They will let you know what is expected in the next coming hours. Storm surge here, I have heard it may be changed at this point. Could be up to 1 to 2 feet around this area. If you're along the shoreline, definitely more than that. But once again, follow the directive of the National Weather Service and listen to their reports, and they will give you the best information available.
All right. Thank you so much, Brent. I appreciate it. Thank you. You stay safe. So we're lucky we've got experts in Miami. We've got experts here. We're surrounded by experts, so we're good. We're getting good information. And we are just going to keep and wait and watch. And we're going to also try to see if we can find some other spots to show you, too. Lynn and Jeff. Sorry.
Okay, wait.
I apologize.
Jeff and I are so worried about you guys. Don't find another spot. We think you're fine just where you're at. I just want to let everybody know who's listening, maybe a few of those who have generators or are watching. There's a little bit of a delay, our signal delay between us and talking to Nicole. But we're going to bring in meteorologist Phil Farrow to talk with all of us and join in this conversation and talk about what we're seeing. Phil, this guy, the storm chaser, was clocking, and you guys have too, winds up to 120 miles an hour right where Nicole is standing.
It's funny that you would say that because we're getting the same report from the same area, except we're clocking 122 miles per hour. The anemometer, or at least the device used to measure that wind speed, is set about 50 feet high. And something else that we know, by the way, wind at the surface is going to be slower than wind in the upper levels. So if you look at a building and possibly 10, 12 stories high, the winds could be as strong as a category more. So as you're looking at those winds howling there, and look at that, it's just it's horizontal. That rain is moving basically from right to left there of your screen. I'm sure that those wind gusts are a lot stronger than 120 from what I can tell here. The best thing to do is get out of there, because that don't want to be out where that rain is hitting you, because that is burning. That's going to sting, that rain hitting you. The storm surge, I haven't heard anything yet. There's usually a little delay, but we will be on top of that as the surge starts to move through. But basically, the story right now is look at that. That is just amazing, as that storm is just barreling down that eye wall right across the Naples area. The southwest coast there will continue to get pummeled over the next few hours. And as this moves away, by the way, things will start to improve for us here across the southeast. I don't know if you could hear me there, Nicole, but it sure almost looks like the wind is actually picking up.
Yes, I can hear you.
It almost looks like the wind is picking up there.
I think it is. I mean, it definitely has been, at least for the last half hour. Yeah, I'm sorry. Phil, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I know we have a delay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
If you guys can just let me know you hear me. Okay, good. Yeah, it has been, I would say, for about the last half hour or so, at least. It's been picking up. I know you've been taking our live pictures. We'd like to show you something else, so maybe we can just slightly move off over here so you can still get a sense. We're hearing that howling. We're hearing some car alarms go off as well. The wind right at this spot, probably not as well. You can see the trees here. We'll have to move around a little bit to see if we can find you a spot that.
Well, we just lost Nicole there, but and I want to show you the reason why we just lost Nicole. Take a look at this, Nicole, Naples, and that is the eye wall right now, just smacking right across that area with 120, 125 mile per hour winds. This is moving in through Chokoloskee right now, just north of Marco Island, just between Marco and Bonita Springs. That eye wall pounding the area. This is the second landfall. The first one's earlier today across Cudjoe. This is an incredible incredible system. It has endured its passage throughout the Caribbean islands, through Cuba, all the way here through the Florida Straits, the Keys, and now making its way across southwest Florida. And it's not done yet. It will continue to hug the coast here, aiming for points north in through Tampa. But as we whiten up the view, if you can see, well, if you can at home, the eye right now is basically parallel to downtown Fort Lauderdale, and that spin, that counterclockwise spin, is starting to push all the heavy rain offshore. So little by little things are improving, first across the Florida Keys, then across deep southern Miami-Dade County, and the improvement will come south to north as all the heavy rain will continue to move offshore. However, for the time being, still parts of coastal Miami-Dade, parts of coastal Broward are under the gun. This is a great shot here. We can see I-75 from Fort Lauderdale all the way through Naples, both sides of the coin here, with the heavy rain across the East Coast and then the eye across Naples. This is just a little bit more than about 100 miles from where the center has made the landfall. So as the system tracks north, we are going to see breaks in the rainfall, breaks in the clouds. The wind should start to come down. It's not going to be done right away. It will not. As it moves to the north, we're going to see a little bit of a lull, and then things may quiet down a little bit. Then it's going to ramp up again later on tonight. And then I think that by tomorrow, what we're going to see is kind of like what we saw yesterday, which was some feeder bands coming across rather quickly, some strong downpours, then everything's quiet and sunny for a while, and then another feeder band comes across, and then they're just going to start to slowly but surely, I should say, fall apart here across the area, and then we can finally say goodbye to this storm.
Well, we are looking forward to saying goodbye to Irma. It does seem like the Naples area has a little bit more to go than we do. You know, they were saying, Phil, I'm watching Wink, their local television station, and their meteorologists, and you know this, they're expecting a surge up to 1 to 9 feet, in addition to 14 inches of rain. All of this through Monday. So Naples also really getting hit hard.
And Phil, I want to ask you, the eye not as well defined as we have seen it throughout the lifespan of this storm, but, you know, given the current location, will Nicole experience a lull in that center point there? If given the fact if she's right in the middle of it, will she see the wind direction change here momentarily?
If the eye goes over her, she's at Naples right now, and it's going to take her at least about another 15 to 20 minutes. But once the eye does go over, there's going to be a nice respite. It's going to be quiet. The skies may not clear up completely, but at least the wind will die down. The rain will stop. That may last about 10, 15, 20 minutes, depending on the eye. And right now, the eye here is looking pretty small, pretty disheveled. And then after that, the winds will come back from the opposite direction, the backside of the system, and then it's going to ramp up again. Now, one of the things we've noticed with Irma here, the same as throughout the lower Florida Keys, that the backside of the storm, the southern side of the eye, isn't as strong as the north side. So hopefully, once the backside of the eye comes across, the eye wall, it won't be as bad. They're still going to get some rain, but hopefully the wind speeds will not be there. That was the case earlier this morning throughout the Florida Keys as well.
Incredible. All right. Thank you so much, Phil Farrow. And as soon as we can hook up back with Nicole Ensalada, a very dedicated reporter, we'll do that. By the way, she was talking to T-Storms out of New Hampshire. Pretty interesting. The two of them talking was just so surreal.
That contrast.
Yeah, the contrast with these over 100-mile-per-hour winds behind them. We have some new video to share with you.
Robin Simmons at the news desk with more, and I believe a statement from the president as well, right, Robin?
Yes, we are hearing from President Donald Trump about Hurricane Irma. He spoke from the White House about what the entire state of Florida is experiencing. Let's listen.
Well, I hope there aren't too many people in the path. You don't want to be in that path. That's a path you don't want to be in, and we tried to warn everybody. And for the most part, they've left, but that's a bad path to be in.
Are you going to visit Florida in the coming days?
We're going to Florida very soon.
Mr. President, you've had a number of briefings. Was there anything that concerns you most?
Well, just the power of this hurricane. This is probably, I saw somebody said 57 years now. Who knows what that means, but it's just about the biggest ever recorded that hit land, and unfortunately, we got it. Now, we may have been a little bit lucky in that it went on the west, and it may not have been quite as destructive, but we're going to see. Look, it's going to play out over the next 5 or 6 hours. I'm going in now for meetings, but it's all about coordination. I think we're really well coordinated, as well as you can possibly be.
So you heard President Trump talking about the response to Hurricane Irma, which is responsible for this. Let's take a look at this video. This is a building in Miami's Wynwood area, 2642 Northeast 5th Avenue. The roof literally ripped off. If you are listening to us on the radio with our simulcast partners, we've got a building and you see this giant plume of white smoke as the roof is just peeled off from the strength of the winds of Hurricane Irma. You can hear the yelling of people as they watch this. It is being shot from above, probably a high-rise building in the area. And again, just this roof being ripped off. The City of Miami Fire Department had to confirm this by using satellite pictures and comparing the satellite pictures with this building and saying, yes, indeed, this building had the roof ripped off because of the winds from Hurricane Irma. And our next piece of video, really stunning. For those who are not watching, if you don't have cell service, if you don't have power, I'm going to describe it to you as best as I can. Basically, it is Tampa Bay looking more like a beach. All you see is sand. You don't see water. You see people standing where water would be. And that is because the strength of this hurricane has pulled the water out. And you've been hearing Phil and Vivian and Brent and Carlene talk about this storm surge and that is the deadliest part of these hurricanes. And now you see a tighter shot of the people standing where Tampa Bay would be. There is no water. It looks like a wasteland, but it is actually Tampa Bay, devoid of water because the storm has sucked it out. And now what we are waiting for is the danger of that water coming rushing back in. So we continue to look for these videos and share them with you. Once again, you heard President Trump say, someone asked if he planned on coming to Florida. He said that would happen very soon. As soon as we get details on that, of course, we will pass it along. For now, reporting live at the news desk, Robin Simmons, 7 News.
Wow, incredible. Thanks, Robin. And I want to go ahead if I can. My friend Jason Highsmith sent me that video from Tampa. He, along with some other friends I know, they're watching us on WSVN.com right now because they want to see what is coming in their direction. Here again is that video. Tampa Bay, completely dry right there. People walking out to the middle of it to check out this ominous sight. To the right there, you see that seawall. That's Bayshore Boulevard. It's a 6-mile sidewalk, beautiful area in South Tampa. People run, walk their dogs there on a daily basis. And in just an afternoon thunder shower, that road floods severely. So given what we have seen here in South Florida, given what the folks in Southwest Florida have seen and what they will see with Hurricane Irma as she pushes on shore, Tampa, Florida will likely see an inundation of water in the hours to come and a very scary sight there, Lynn, as you see the water pulled out.
Strange. The water's pulling, but it's coming back. That's the whole thing.
And how fast, we don't know.
And how fast. Wow, that is something else to see. We're going to keep an eye on Tampa as well because that's the next hit. All right, let's check on how the city of Miami is doing. There is storm surge and flooding everywhere in South Florida. Let's go to Raj Lowe for an update on the flooding there. Raj?
Hi, everyone. We're on 14th Street and Biscayne Boulevard. We walked up a couple of blocks, and I want to show you something here that the actual storm surge has moved up. Let's go up Biscayne here, and you can see before we were by the AAA. Now this storm surge has moved. This flooding has moved all the way up, and if I walk out here, you can see down, all the way down Biscayne Boulevard there, you can see that this storm surge extends. So it has now gone from all the way from basically the AAA and is now progressing northward on Biscayne Boulevard. Good thing there's a curfew tonight in Miami-Dade. I'll show you why. You see pieces like that. We've been out here the whole day, and we're always very cognizant, especially in these strong winds, that things just start flying off of buildings like that right there. And, you know, they were prepared here. There are sandbags up. They boarded up, but you can see the effects of the storm surge. Now, let's walk down the street because I want to see if these people are still here. We spoke about that during this type of coverage. We always see people, you know, coming out, wanting to see things. But what was evident very early on in our coverage of Hurricane Irma was that people really took this storm seriously. And how could you not take it seriously when you got winds like this? Now, here's what I want to show everybody, and I'll describe it to those listening on the radio. If you look across the street, you'll see people in that window, right? So instead of coming out here to take pictures, and they're waving. They're on a second floor of a condominium here, okay? So instead of coming out to take photos that we've seen in other storm situations, the winds were just so intense for the majority of the day, and I can tell you they have decreased pretty dramatically in the last half hour. But for most part of this day, you couldn't see. The wind was, howling, the rain was going, and people like that, second floor of the condo, they said, you know what, we want to take pictures, but we're not going to go outside. We don't want to be in this. So what are we going to do? We're going to stand up there on the second floor to try to capture what you don't often see, and we'll walk back down here to Biscayne Boulevard. And this is Biscayne Boulevard, everybody. Look at this right here. I mean, that's just the force of the winds that are still there, just blowing this water all over the place. But this is not a sight that you often see. One of the busiest thoroughfares in South Florida. We've covered a lot of, flooding stories, but one of the busiest thoroughfares in South Florida, covered in water. Good thing that they have that curfew tonight in Miami-Dade County, because it's going to be very dangerous driving in these conditions. A couple of blocks down, we showed you about an hour ago, there were some down power lines. So it is actually, it's a good thing, but you can, as you say, you're still driving around. It's dangerous to drive. So you still have people out there. What is it, Lynn? Almost every live shot I do, we have people who are still out there. So last night in Surfside, that person, by the way, that last night in Surfside, it turned out that person ran out of gas.
Oh, yeah, because, okay,
yes,
so those,
I found out that answer.
Those of, okay, Rosh is referring, I don't even know what time it is anymore, but last night, I think it was like 2 in the morning last night, Rosh was doing a live report with us, and it was in Surfside, and it was dark, and there was no, you guys lost electricity, there was a lot of flooding, and then we saw one lone driver, it looked like a white car just like that, stopped, hit a bump, cops went driving right by. Okay, so that person ran out of gas. But the point is, you should not be on the road last night or even now. I mean, now the story is going to be, and the danger is going to be, what's on the road, waiting for the water to subside, dealing with down power lines as well. Okay, Rosh, stay right there. I just want to reiterate this before I forget. In case people are listening and didn't know this, you probably already do. No schools right now in South Florida are open until at least Wednesday, and that could change. If you live in Monroe County or you want to check on your property and you evacuated, you're not allowed to go back to any of the Keys right now, or at least Monroe County right now, until further notice, because the National Guard is coming in to help.
And some 1.5 million people without power across the state, and that number is likely to increase in the hours to come as the storm continues to bear down on the Sunshine State.
Well, it almost seemed like with that last report from Rosh that the winds were dying down, and maybe like Phil said, things are getting a little better, and we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. We can actually look at cleanup right now and cleaning up debris, and we're going to check in with another reporter also in Miami to see if that is the case. So what we're going to be dealing with right now is curfew. There's a curfew in effect. Basically, police and officials don't want us on the road at all when it starts to get dark, which will be in a couple of hours. That curfew is in effect until 7 a.m. Do we have Sheldon Fox?
I think we have Brian Inton.
Oh, okay.
Going back to Brickell right now. Brian, we'll check back in with you. Earlier in the day, we saw white caps in Brickell in some of that water. What are conditions like out there right now?
Well, it's gotten much, much better than earlier. It's actually not raining quite as hard. The wind has slowed down just a little bit, if you can believe it. We're protected by the building here, but take a look. Now that the rain has settled down, you can really see how high the water is. I know our camera's a little foggy because we've been through so much weather here over the last couple of days, but you're looking at the intersection of Brickell Avenue and 12th Street, and it is still totally covered in water. It almost looks like a river in some of these intersections as the wind is just pushing the water west. Yeah, you see right there in front of Colonnade Plaza, you can see that's what the storm surge does. It's like a river. And so we're like 3 blocks west of the bay, and so the water is just coming from the bay and it's being pushed down these streets, and you see Brickell is now underwater. What I've been taking a look at is these steps over here. The water earlier today was up to the top of these steps, and now it is we've got like 2 or 3 steps showing at the top. So I'm hoping that that's a good sign that things are receding out here. But it's been interesting because people should really stay inside. I mean, you don't want to be in this water. It's seawater. It's murky. You can't tell where the road and the curbs and the sidewalks begin and end, and there's no telling what's under the water. But a lot of people have been coming out, and there were actually Miami police out here a while ago urging them to stay inside. I actually saw, this was interesting, about a half an hour ago, I saw a big expedition roll through here, not realizing how deep it was, and they actually got stuck for a second, and the muffler was bubbling. And so I walked over as close as I could get, and I noticed inside the expedition, the people inside were wearing bike helmets. And apparently there are these amateur storm chasers who have come to town, who are trying to get as close to the damage as they could. But it was such a strange sight because they were in like this rental white expedition, and they had on these bike helmets inside. Needless to say, they didn't make it through the water. They got stuck for a second, and then they were finally able to turn around and get out of flooded Brickell Avenue. Lynn and Jeff.
Boy, that is so bizarre. I mean, there are storm chasers, but next is going to be curious people. But, you know, that's a really big truck.
It is.
Your point is well taken. I know you got a foggy lens. If we can go back to you for a quick question, Brian, how deep do you think that water is there on the streets of Brickell? How deep do you think the water is?
So, you know, when you get out into the middle of these intersections, it's deep. I would say it's definitely over waist deep. Earlier, I would say it was even higher, maybe almost like to my neck. Obviously, I didn't go out that far, but I could just notice because I did walk out a little bit, and just within a few steps, you're up to your knees. And we had a few different landmarks. We had a fire hydrant that went totally under, and then we saw the way it worked its way up a stop sign. So you could tell that you know, it got very, very deep out here.
And of course, high tide coming later this evening. How will that impact the situation? Hopefully not too poorly. And Brian, like you noticed, and like we can see, hopefully that water is starting to recede just a little bit now that the storm is beginning to move out of our region here in South Florida.
But Brian, how are you guys going to get out of there? I mean, I know you're dedicated, but eventually, like, are you stuck?
Well, interesting you asked that. We sort of were earlier. We found ourselves in kind of a weird position, not a dangerous position because we were on high ground. Let me show you. We're like there's a big bank right here where we're standing, and we're on dry ground up here, and we found a spot for our car up here. And when things were really bad earlier as the water was rushing in, we were pretty much surrounded by water. I knew we weren't going to get the car wet or anything because it was up on a hill. But luckily now that the water's receding, it seems like we'll be able to get out of here, hopefully within a couple hours or so if we need to.
Well, that's good to see. You want to make sure that your safety and the safety of your photographer, Louis Sabat, is paramount and priority number one here as we deal with this flooding situation in Brickell.
Yeah, did you hear him? He said maybe he thinks it's up to his neck in some areas of Brickell. Okay, Sheldon Fox, we got you there. Man, this dock took a beating. So many boats have been damaged. Where are you at, and what do you see?
Okay, Lynn, we're on Biscayne Bay here, and we've talked about storm surge for days and days. I want you to look at the Quayside Marina. Quayside, the towers of Quayside, it's a beautiful complex, normally beautiful, with a great marina. It's right on Biscayne Boulevard and 107th Street, and this is the easternmost section of Quayside. And this is the marina, and this is just a sad, sad case right here. We showed you these boats last night. Some of them were on lifts. A couple of them were in trouble, but a good portion of them looked like they were going to be fine. Well, you can see the surge, the aggressive, nasty, angry surge coming up still on the marina, on the dock, compromising the seawall fully, and basically sinking. At least a dozen boats are under the water right now, and the ones that aren't are in very rough shape and in big trouble. You can see how hard that wind is blowing. It's not the safest place in the world to be. We've been trying to get you this shot all day, but we wanted to wait till there was something of a lull, which is what I would consider us to be in right now. But it is just really difficult to have to watch this, and the idea that that this place is where on a Sunday or a Saturday or any other day people are enjoying what makes them so happy, going out on the boat, being with family, being where they live, being in their own little piece of paradise. Today, it's anything but, and you've got a raging sea. Biscayne Bay dealing with just an awful storm surge still, Lynn and Jeff.
Well, obviously, I mean, these boaters did, and these captains and these owners did everything they could to secure their boats. But it's, I mean, you get to a point where there's absolutely no match against a strong hurricane. Sheldon, you know the area, and if you had, I mean, there's one boat. Look, there's a couple of boats. Maybe they're okay. It looks like they were they're up on a lift. But how many boats do you think are submerged underwater? Guesstimate.
Conservative estimate, I would say 10 to 12, and that's conservative. I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 slips. Just the slips. All of the slips as of last night were occupied. And they all had, and I would say about half of those were boats that were strategically placed on elevated piers. They were lifted, and they were in great looking shape. Even as the winds, the first sort of feeder bands came in, they seemed like they were taking it well, with the exception of one. Last night, late in the evening, we showed you one that was just being battered by the sea and that was not going to make it. That was clear. That one I can't even see any longer. There's one over there, Patricia, if you want to just swing it around 180. There's one that you could see that's completely upside down. And then if I were able to get closer to the water to show you, you could probably see some of them just beneath the surface, but I'm not going anywhere beyond where we're standing right now, Lynn and Jeff, because it's just too dangerous. And by the way, we talked about the seawall and the actual dock itself, which is a sturdy concrete brick structure. Look at all the bricks that were taken up at some point along this dock. And another fear is that the finger piers might be compromised or snap, or the actual the pilings where the boats are tied to, or sometimes get tied to, could also snap in this. This is just a very difficult thing to have to watch. But like you said, Mother Nature, it's the reality. These boats, these structures, no match for Irma's wrath.
Pilings. Those concrete pilings go all the way down in the ground. You're right. Gosh, the strength is incredible. Picking up the pieces of brick, which probably had mortar. Wow.
It looks like the open ocean. It doesn't look like a calm Biscayne Bay, which we're used to seeing on a normal. Look at that surge there coming up. And, you know, and Sheldon, stay with us. You know, you see those bricks on the that little boardwalk area right there. That's a good visual, because think, you know, some of the streets in downtown in Brickell, who knows what's, you know, washing around under that water right now. And it's why you don't want it. I mean, flooding your vehicle is one thing, but the last thing you want to happen is you're driving down the road, then you get 4 flat tires because you ran over a pile of bricks.
That's true.
So who knows what's washing around or what's washing up as these surge waters inundate the roads there in downtown Brickell and, you know, up in Broward County, Fort Lauderdale as well.
And look at the surge, just the water just being pushed up. And you can see this boat. I mean, the only thing keeping this one afloat, I guess, is because it's still tied to the piling. And we saw actually 3 boats that your photographer showed us upside down, Sheldon. Nothing but incredible.
Yeah, and we're going to take a little bit of a walk. We're going to try to do this as safely as possible. There's sort of a levee, an elevated levee portion here, Lynn and Jeff, like sort of a, you know, man-made kind of grassy hill that backs up to the actual seawall, just to the immediate west of the dock. And we're walking along that right now as carefully as possible because I want to just get you another vantage point. Man, and I'm looking at the rest of the common areas of this complex here, and it's just a shame. Patricia, why don't you pan off, get a shot of that boat right there that's completely upside down, and then yeah, just right there, and then just pan, I guess, back the other way, if possible, so we could show the other side of the marina. Lynn and Jeff, just about, I would say, conservatively, half the slips here, maybe more, probably more, were occupied by boats. And it's not just boats that are thrown up and destroyed. You've got other just pieces of debris and chunks of the dock that have been thrown up in this area. And the big concern with surge is, depending on how high that surge gets, you know, you worry, and Belkey's raised that question last night, could it be that one of these boats gets pushed up with a strong enough wave and a hard enough wind up onto the dock itself? And the answer is, I wouldn't put it past this situation here, guys.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars in damage, and the water is so dark because everything is so churned up. Sheldon Fox, thank you so much for your bravery, you and your photographer there in Northeast Miami-Dade, showing us significant damage to boats and boat slips.
You know, we're ping-ponging back and forth here from the southwest coast here to South Florida. Want to go back to Nicole Ensalada. Last we checked in with her closer to the top of the 4 o'clock hour. That is right when that eye was starting to make sure. Nicole, what happened? It's completely calm there almost. The eye, I guess.
Yeah, it is a lot calmer now, but this is what Phil described for us. So you've seen the images we've shown you over the last few hours of a complete, almost whiteout condition in the last half hour or so. But now take a look at this. The sky is not clear by any stretch of the imagination, but look at how calm the winds are. This is just a difference of a few minutes. So things are actually fairly calm right now. And there is a lot of debris here in this street off of 5th Avenue in downtown Naples. We showed you about an hour ago a home, and we're going to go over to the other side of the parking garage so that we can show you the front yard of that house over here. We'll come back over here, and we are on the north side of the parking garage, and the house looks like it's done fine. In fact, I can see their satellite dish is still up, so that's good. But you can see they have some tree damage and a lot of the kind of debris that makes it difficult to get around, that makes it difficult to not only to get around, but also makes it dangerous if you happen to be out walking around. So there's a lot of that we're seeing here. This is a very small slice of Collier, Lee County. This is just right here in downtown Naples. So eventually we'll have a chance to, to learn more about other parts of the area, but also see the tops of these trees. They're just sheared off. These branches are all just sheared off from the very top. The other concern now that I know Phil was talking to us, he said after this lull that we get here, we'll start to see a wind shift, and then perhaps we will start to see some of that storm surge that everyone here has been so afraid of. We've already seen a lot of water, nothing like that, not a storm surge, clearly, but I wanted to walk around back to the middle of the garage. I wanted to show you, we are up on the 3rd floor, I think we are. We're almost to the top. And if some folks parked their car here for safety of their vehicles, they're already running into just some standing water. This is the 3rd floor. This is not much, but the water's still coming down, and this is the 3rd floor. We actually even had to move our car to get it out of the way. We'll go down and check out what the 1st floor is like. The 1st floor was absolutely inundated as well. So you got to hope for the sake of the folks who own these cars that we're not going to see this water, up here on the 3rd floor increase too much more. So we will have to wait and see if this ultimately was the right thing to do for their vehicles. Although, of course, when you're talking about water like this, it's hard to say, what the right thing to do is other than leave town. So we'll have to watch and see what kind of storm surge we end up with in this area if we do. But right now, things have calmed down considerably in downtown Naples. Jeff, Lynn?
Well, watching the radar, Nicole, and it's exactly what Phil said. It's amazing how smart he is. He's so wonderful. Yeah. You're right in the eye in the center where it's actually dry and calm, and in a few minutes you'll be getting exactly what he talked about, more rain and more gusts. And, like you said, you're on the 3rd floor of this parking garage. You're away from the winds, but, that rain has nowhere to go, it seems like, starting at the top and then leaking through, and there you have it. You're standing in a big puddle.
Well, exactly. And, Robin was talking about the Tampa area with that water sucking out. They were experiencing that here up in the Sanibel area this morning. The folks here who work in this part of the state were talking about that and how unusual is an understatement. They were talking about it being historic, that folks will talk about other hurricanes, Hurricane Donna, other hurricanes, they'll say, well, I remember when I walked all the way to the end of the pier, under the pier, and you could actually, not hit the water yet when something like that happens. They're saying this is sort of a similar situation. So we will have to wait and see if all that water that has left Southwest Florida now, in what form will we see it come back, and will there be how much danger or destruction we'll see for folks here. I have been told that in this particular part of Naples, the 5th Avenue downtown area, and for those who've never been here, this is more of an upscale tourist sort of area, shops, that sort of thing, that this might be slightly higher ground than other parts of other neighborhoods that might be right up against the Gulf. So that may end up serving them well. But if the storm surge is 3 to 15 feet, like some people have been, some meteorologists here locally have been predicting, I'm not sure if that's going to be quite enough, but I guess we will wait and see. Obviously, there are other parts of Southwest Florida that are completely vulnerable to that kind of storm surge. Bonita Springs, Cape Coral, some of those areas. The areas in Fort Myers, if you are familiar, the McGregor area, that is, you know, right there up against either the Caloosahatchee, the Gulf, all of those waterways. We saw it with Charlie up the Peace River into Charlotte County. So we will have to see exactly how this all manifests when it comes to the actual height of the water, if and when it comes.
You know, Nicole, it's pretty fascinating. Over the course of the last hour, you know, again, we checked in with you around 4:10 earlier this afternoon within the 4 o'clock hour, wind gusts of about 120 miles per hour. I'm looking at that palm tree right there behind you. The palm fronds barely even moving right now. Have you ever been in the eye of a hurricane, and have you ever experienced anything like this?
I'm trying to think. It's been a long time. I think the closest was George in, the late 90s, in the Biloxi Gulfport area. Although I think it made landfall closer to Alabama, if I'm not mistaken. And that was, you know, one of those overnight storms, so it was difficult to really see. And when you're just being pelted in, you know, Biloxi by where I happened to be at the time, by all sorts of, you know, pebbles and things like that, actually broke out windows of the vehicle we were in. But something quite like this, especially during the